Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. There is no planet B. The warning of Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to the COP27 climate conference. In June, flooding put a third of Pakistan underwater. It was caused by two factors: the heaviest monsoon rains in living memory, plus melting ice caps in the Himalayas, making rivers burst their banks. At least 1,700 lives were lost, 33 million people in all affected. And it continues. Shahzaib Wahlah is our reporter. Shahzaib, with the carbon footprint in Pakistan next to nothing, it does seem unfair that the country is among those suffering the worst because of climate change.
Well, Pakistan's carbon emission share is less than 1% to the global count, and yet Pakistan is at the forefront of the brunt of climate change. If we talk about recent history, Pakistan has seen multiple climate-induced disasters. Even from the start of this year, right after the winters, we saw a harsh summer come in, and with it brought multiple heat waves. Temperatures across the country rose up to even 51 degrees centigrades in some parts of the south of the country. And right after these high temperatures, there was a monsoon on steroid that drowned almost one-third of the country.
Shahzaib, thank you very much indeed. Let's take a look then at the report by Shahzaib, Sonia Ghezali and Sameer Mandhro.
The plains of Sindh in southern Pakistan look like an ocean. 2 months after the torrential rains of a historic monsoon, the water continues to stagnate. Thousands of affected families live isolated, cut off from the rest of the country by water. Their survival depends on the rescuers who bring them supplies.
We are on our way to the city of Gozo, which has been surrounded by water for 2 months, and there is a shortage of food there. We are delivering aid. We have flour, lentils, oil, and other food products. We're going to distribute them to the people. We've been doing this for a month and a half. You see this whole area here? Well, these were towns. There were people living there. There were houses. There was a whole network of roads, markets. There were fields. Now this area looks like an ocean. Everywhere you look, all you see is water. The water level here is 3 meters, 3 meters 50. You see this ore is 2 meters long. Look, I'm dipping it completely into the water and it's not touching the ground. This shows that the water is at least 3 meters deep. 2 months ago, it was 6 meters deep. So the water level has only gone down by half.
The town of Gozo, surrounded by 20 villages, has turned into an island. More than 400 families live here and depend on international and government food aid.
147.
Punal is a father of 4 children. He and his family have survived thanks to these food rations. They lost almost everything in the floods.
This was where our kitchen was, but it was destroyed by the floods. There was a wall here. It completely collapsed. Now we spread these fabrics to have some privacy. You see here, our yard is filled with garbage that the floods brought here. It's very dirty and there are also a lot of bugs. All the trees are covered with cobwebs. Because of the floods, All the spiders have invaded the trees. It's very thick, and even if you clean it up, it comes back in a few hours. Look at this. This is the type of spider that's everywhere. It's very difficult for us. There are so many bugs and we live in the open.
The family is living in an open-air dump, infested with bugs and surrounded by unsafe water. A nightmare they've been living through for nearly 8 weeks.
Many parts of the village are flooded. I'm scared for my children. They go out all the time. I'm afraid they'll fall in the water and drown. Sometimes I lock my children in the room. And there are many diseases like gastroenteritis, malaria. If my children get sick, how can I take them to the hospital? The roads are flooded. We have to rent a boat, but we have no money for that.
More than 22,000 children have been hospitalized in flooded areas in the south of the country, and many have been admitted to this children's hospital. The stagnant water and appalling living conditions have caused outbreaks of diarrhea, malaria, respiratory infections, skin and eye infections, typhoid, and other diseases. Hospitals like this one are overwhelmed. Dr. Ikra has been working long hours since the floods began.
चाहते होता सदा
अभी इनके बुखार जो है
कड़े खाते
बुखार बताते हैं इनके थोड़ो झटके जो असर बाय बदी ने
कड़े खाते होता बुखार
सतो अठोरिया
तो अठोड़ी
इनके जो आर दुआ है थोड़ो झटके में थोड़ो बां जका से जान टंग दस के मरिया हन दिया
तहां जे शहर में बोर्ड आई है
हां बोर्ड आई है
केतरी आई है
पानी
उते घणा बार एड़ा आइन जेके मलेरिया थी हुजे बोर्ड खां पो
काफी बारन के मना मलेरिया बुखार थियो मुद्दे जो बुखार थियो काफी घणन के थियो बुखार बदे
इनके ना मलेरिया थियो ठीक है दिमाग ते इन जो बुखार चढ़ी वियो आहे सही आहे ऐं हुन जे करे इनके होश नथो अचे इंजेक्शन हलन्स था दवा हलेस थी बाक़ी अल्लाह बेहतर कंदो ठीक है
In our village, there's water everywhere. There are no doctors, no clinic to go to. It took us more than a week to bring our daughter here.
If she had been treated before, her malaria would not have become so severe. She could have been cured a while ago, but the general situation with the floods everywhere makes it difficult for patients to come to the hospital. They're overcrowded. We have up to 4 patients per bed. Sometimes we're not even able to treat patients properly in time, and this leads to medical complications.
Due to the lack of medical staff, parents watch over their sick children 24 hours a day. Naza Bibi is with her granddaughter, who has pneumonia.
As we are poor, we first gave traditional medicines to my granddaughter. It did not help. Then I decided to come here. But on the way, someone robbed me, took all my money. I didn't even have money to pay for the transport. One of my daughters was injured in the floods. Her arm is broken, and she lost her sight.
1.6 million children are in urgent need of medical aid in the south of Pakistan. Every day here, nearly 20 children succumb to their illnesses. This woman has given back the lifeless body of her baby who died from hepatitis. He arrived too late at the hospital and could not be saved by the medical teams. The family has no choice but to head back to their flooded village. In Gozo, we meet up with Punal. Most of the shops in his city remain closed because they're too damaged, but he was able to resume his work. He's a waiter in a traditional tea shop. The walls were washed away by the raging waters, and only the benches remain. Because of the lack of customers, Punal lost 60% of his salary and earns less than €1 per day. The concern is evident on everyone's faces.
The thing we are most afraid of is the rain. If it rains again, what are we going to do? Our house has no roof. How will we shelter our children? We earn almost nothing. My salary does not even allow us to feed ourselves. So how can we think about rebuilding our houses? We have so many difficulties and we're afraid there will be more floods. If that happens, we'll die.
Pakistan is responsible for less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but is one of the countries most affected by global warming, something that many here are unaware of.
I don't know where this water came from, but the quantity was huge. In this city, there was 5 meters of water depth. When the floods came, it was chaos here, as if it was the apocalypse. People were running to try to find shelter on dry land.
Do you know about climate change?
No, I've never heard of that. Some people say that these floods are a Western conspiracy, that the Westerners created and sent us big clouds. Others say that our own leaders are behind it, that they drowned us to get foreign aid. But we don't know for sure because we are illiterate.
The population in rural Sindh is one of the poorest in Pakistan. The literacy rate is one of the lowest in the country. For the past few years, one man has been trying to raise awareness. He addresses these women who harvest cotton and who have lost their jobs because the fields are underwater.
Above the sky, you know there is the sun. The sun sends heat to the earth. Between the sun and the earth, there is a protective layer that filters the bad heat rays. You know that the temperatures are higher now. This is not because there is heat coming from the earth, but because the protective layer has thinned out, and now the bad heat rays are coming directly to the earth, and that is why the temperatures have increased. The reason this is happening is because cars and factories burning fuel cause pollution to rise in the air and damage the protective layer. The most important side effect is that temperatures are rising, and this is causing natural disasters over and over again. There is now a threat of flooding. There is now a threat of recurrent flooding. So we have to prepare for that. Yes, we have to be very prepared. The first thing is that we have to create grain storage places in the villages to ensure food security. Secondly, we need to build a drainage system that can drain the water and thus secure the villages. And thirdly, and most importantly, the houses must be built higher so that if the water comes at this level, for example, it can't enter the houses and you can stay safe at home. So who can tell me what you learned from this discussion today?
Well, we have understood very well why these disasters happen. We are illiterate. We live in isolation. We didn't know anything about this before. Now we've understood that we need to have a good drainage system, that we need to save grain in case of emergency to be able to survive.
We are the least contributor to the carbon emissions, but we are, suffering more. The clothing industry basically working on their shoulder. They have to pick the cotton. They have to empower the industry, but the industry is not getting back. So this is kind of the climate justice agenda, that how the other stakeholders who are involving, even the local, even the national as well as the international, the buying firms, buying companies like Adidas, like others, who have to pay back, the firms who are basically promoting the fossil fuels and like that, they should compensate the carbon clean credits. And being a citizen, I am also trying that climate justice at the international level is also needed.
The cost of the damage caused by the floods in Pakistan amounts to $30 billion, according to the government. It will take years for the country to recover.
Our reporter Shahzaib Wahlah is still with us in Islamabad. Shahzaib, thank you for that insight into the problems Pakistan is facing because of climate change. Now, climate compensation is called for, but how can money begin to put right all the problems the country is facing?
Well, there are calls for climate compensation in Pakistan, mainly because the devastation that has been done by these floods, Pakistan cannot rehabilitate by itself. Hundreds of thousands of acres of crops have been destroyed, millions of homes have been destroyed, and the government estimates the total loss to be around $30 billion. And right now, Pakistan's economy is in shatters. So for now, Pakistan is co-chairing the COP27 summit that is happening in Egypt. And right before the summit, we met with the climate change minister of Pakistan, Senator Shahzaib Rahman, and this is what she had to say.
It is becoming untenable for conferences like this not to approach the heart of the problem, which is climate injustice. Countries that are the 1% club, the super rich of the super rich, need to compensate the other 1%. Who pollute less than 1%, which is us.
Very clear words that from the minister. Back to Shahzaib in Islamabad now. Shahzaib, over 1,700 lives were lost, which is a tragedy. A third of the country, as we've said, was underwater. The floods were extensive across Pakistan, 33 million people affected. What's it like now on the ground? How are people getting their lives back? Are things progressing?
Well, the situation still remains quite dire. Even after 3 months have passed, parts of the country are still underwater. And now the winter is coming. And hundreds of thousands of people who are homeless will spend these winters in makeshift camps with no electricity and no proper infrastructure to keep themselves warm. And I would like to remind you that the majority of the population that has been impacted by these floods comes from the poorest segment of the society. And when we met these people, they told us that it's going to take them at least 5 to 10 years to get back on their feet. Some of them even told us that it may take them a generation to just go back to what they were before these devastating floods hit them.
Help is needed. Shahzaib, thank you so much for your report and thank you for that analysis. You can see it all again, of course, via our website, france24.com. This is Reporters. Stay with us. Most of all, stay safe.